Okay, let's dive into this. Have you noticed how generative AI is just completely rewriting the rules of the creative process? I mean, we're not just talking about a fancy new tool here. We are looking at an entirely new way of thinking about art, research, and creation itself. Today, we're exploring this massive evolution in what's known as the new aesthetic. We're going to chart its fascinating journey from simple digital artifacts, like pixels on a screen, all the way to the complex, invisible architecture of modern AI. So if you've ever wondered how AI is fundamentally changing what it means to be a creator, you are absolutely in the right place.
So, what happens when machines stop just seeing and actually start thinking? For the longest time, technology really just captured or processed our world, right? A camera recorded light, a screen displayed code. But now? Well, now we find ourselves in the middle of this massive leap. We've moved from early machine vision straight into modern machine cognition. The tech isn't just passively looking at the world anymore. It's synthesizing, it's analyzing, and it is generating entirely new concepts.
To really get a grip on where we are, we have to establish where this whole thing started. The phrase, the new aesthetic, was originally coined by the writer and artist James Bridle. At its core, it was this observation of how the visual language of digital technology was basically bleeding over into the physical world. Think about chunky pixels, unexpected digital glitches, or that very specific kind of flattened look of satellite imagery. Originally, this movement was entirely about highlighting how machines see our reality. It was very much about the surface level.
But because of how fast things are moving, we're now experiencing this profound transition from machine vision to machine cognition. The early days of the new aesthetic were completely obsessed with the digital artifact, the glitch, the error. But when we throw advanced generative AI models into the mix, things like Gemini or Notebook LM, the aesthetic evolves dramatically. We're no longer just dealing with a camera's pixelated vision. We're dealing with synthesis. The machine is actively participating in the thought process now, literally bridging the gap between raw data and actual intelligence.
So what does this actually mean for creators like us? Well, we're witnessing a massive visual shift, moving from artifact to architecture. The role of the visual artist is fundamentally changing right before our eyes. In the early days, artists deliberately highlighted the glitch to show the machine's presence, kind of saying, hey, look, a computer made this. Today, the aesthetic isn't just a surface-level error anymore. It's become deeply structural. The machine's influence is actually built into the very architecture of how the image, or even the code, is constructed from the ground up.
And that brings us to a huge realization. The AI's native language is probability, not just code. When you use generative models for visual art, whether you're collaborating with an AI to write HTML for a cellular automata simulation, or you're exploring these crazy complex geometric patterns like Penrose tiling, you aren't just writing strict deterministic rules anymore. The resulting art carries a really distinct signature from a probabilistic latent space, which you can kind of think of as this invisible, high-dimensional map of infinite possibilities. You're working with probabilities, weighing different outcomes, and navigating a landscape dictated by mathematical chance.
And this brilliantly illustrates a profound shift in identity for the artist. You move from being a sole creator to a curator of permutations. You're no longer sitting in front of a blank canvas, forcefully making every single micro-decision and brushstroke. Instead, you're navigating that vast, invisible map of possibilities we just talked about. Your job as the artist fundamentally shifts. You become the curator, tasked with deciding which of these endless algorithmic permutations actually deserve to exist in the human world.
But hey, this structural change isn't just happening visually. We're also experiencing a huge audio shift, where creators are actively embracing the uncanny resonance of AI. Normally, when you integrate synthesized speech or AI-generated video into a multimedia project, say a documentary or an audio essay, the traditional instinct is to try and hide the machine completely, right? Audio engineers will spend hours tweaking and tuning just to make the AI sound perfectly, indistinguishably human. But the evolved new aesthetic challenges this entirely. It's wonderfully rebellious. It actually suggests doing the exact opposite.
Just look at these native AI textures for a second. The slight, uncanny cadence of synthetic voices, the mathematical perfection of frequency ratios and spectral composition, and that surreal, dreamlike morphing you always see in AI video. In traditional media production, these are considered straight-up errors or flaws that you need to fix. But in this new paradigm, there's no way. They aren't flaws at all. They're the native texture of the medium itself. They are, quite literally, the brushstrokes of the AI.
By actually embracing these artifacts, you create something entirely new. A fundamentally hybrid collaboration between human intent and machine execution. By leaning into that uncanny resonance rather than fighting it, you create an atmosphere that feels truly co-authored. You're not forcing the machine to awkwardly mimic a human, you're letting the machine speak in its own native accent. And that creates this transparent, fascinating, and honestly beautiful partnership between you and the tool.
Okay, let's pivot for a second and transition from art to intellect. This is the intellectual shift, where we begin using AI as cognitive mirrors. Using large language models fundamentally transforms the nature of intellectual exploration. When you feed massive bodies of text into specialized models like Notebook LM, the AI doesn't just act like a traditional search engine retrieving a specific fact. No, it actually digests, synthesizes, and maps incredibly complex connections across vast landscapes of knowledge.
This completely disrupts how we work, taking us from linear research to a rhizomatic workflow. In the old days, research was a straight line, wasn't it? You read a book, you took a note, you wrote a paragraph, A to B to C. But now it's rhizomatic, meaning it spreads out in all directions at once, kind of like a massive interconnected root system. The AI maps unexpected connections simultaneously, allowing you to traverse massive knowledge bases in a nonlinear, incredibly dynamic way. It is a wildly powerful way to learn.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer diversity of what you can combine to spark these connections. Imagine feeding an AI completely disparate inputs. You drop in classical literature, historical treatises on spectral music, and some deeply technical digital signal processing manuals. A human mind might seriously struggle to find the immediate link between those three things, but the AI, it absolutely thrives here. It'll synthesize these entirely unrelated topics and generate profound, unexpected through lines connecting them all.
And that leads directly to this beautiful concept, productive friction. Let's be honest, sometimes the AI gets it slightly wrong. It hallucinates, or it confidently gives you a slightly weird misunderstanding of your prompt, like proudly serving you a recipe for a cake made of gravel. But in creative and intellectual exploration, that's not a bug, it's a feature. The most valuable use of an AI isn't always to get the exact quote-unquote right answer. These slight misunderstandings create friction. They serve as oblique strategies that push your exploration into entirely new, weird, and fascinating directions that a purely human mind might never have mapped out on its own.
All of these shifts, visual, audio, and intellectual, bring us to a massive realization for today's independent makers. The system is the art. For a solo creator working today, integrating these multi-agent AI frameworks and automated pipelines represents a staggering democratization of scale. You no longer need a massive studio or an entire team of researchers and producers to create complex, multi-layered media. The reality of what one single person can do has fundamentally expanded. You can now architect entire ecosystems. From a single command line or a visual node interface, a solo creator can orchestrate a full content pipeline. You can have agents researching and drafting text based on your prompts, other agents synthesizing the audio outputs using that native machine texture we discussed, and still others generating the visual assets. You're no longer just making a thing. You are playing the role of a master conductor, automating incredible scale right from your desk.
Which leads us to the ultimate takeaway from today's explainer. I really want you to focus on this. The art is no longer just the final product. Let that sink in for a second. Historically, we judged art and creativity solely by the finished painting, the completed song, or the published essay. But in this new era of generative cognition and automated ecosystems, the final polished output is really only half the story.
The true masterpiece lies right here in this concept. The art is the system you built to generate it. Architecting the complex web of prompts, parameters, latent spaces, and multi-agent pipelines, that is the modern creative act. The way you curate those endless permutations, the way you harness that productive friction, the ecosystem you build to synthesize your thoughts into media, that system itself is your masterpiece. So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to carry with you today. If the system is the art, what will you architect next? This paradigm shift gives you unprecedented power to build vast worlds of knowledge and media. The tools are right in front of you, just waiting for your human intent to guide their incredible machine execution. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this sparks some productive friction for you. And I truly, truly can't wait to see the incredible systems you decide to build.